I'm convinced that my parents are setting me up for a surprise arranged marriage, and now I'm completely freaked out and I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So to start things out, my parents are very traditional, and I am more of the white sheep of the family. I don't really look like a lot of my family and have always gone against the grain. Starting when I was a teenager, I knew what path I wanted to take for my future. It was not what my parents wanted, so they fought back, but we ended up with an agreement that I thought wouldn't matter, and that was if I wasn't married in 10 years after I started college, they would arrange some kind of marriage for me. Now here's the thing, I figured they were joking with me, and there was also a thought that there was no way I will be single in 10 years. I have had some flings, but I haven't had anything very serious. Up to this point, I have been driven to get where I'm going right now. In my dream career, I am stable, self-sufficient, with no debt and becoming successful. There has been no talk about it throughout the years, and I honestly thought that it was all forgotten. Well, that is until my older sister said that she was coming back this week for an event. She lives several states over. I don't get to see her as much anymore. I mean, we are close and we do talk a bunch, but everything has been normal with nothing really being said or hinted at this point. I went to pick her up from the airport and I noticed she had 3 fancy dresses, and one of them was a very traditional dress used for engagements, weddings, or other similar events, with the other 2 being really formal dresses. Now, when I questioned what this was for, they said don't worry about it. Then they later said it was for an agreement, and it was right then and there I realized she used the word agreement. I dropped her off at our parents' house and they wouldn't let me in the house, but there were a bunch of cars and I saw decorations in the house. They kicked me out and said they would talk to me later. This was 2 days ago, and now they invited me to dinner for Thursday and told me to dress like I was receiving a reward for all my hard work. Now, with all things considered, it is driving me crazy that I'm basically being blocked out, and I'm nervous about what Thursday holds for me. The only agreement I can think about is the arranged marriage. I asked my sister again if this was what I think it was about, and she said not to worry too much about it, but then added that our parents do notice things and wouldn't leave me with a stranger. And these are all odd comments that are making me paranoid. I seriously don't know if my sister is slipping information or is just pushing my buttons and making me go crazy, because right now I'm questioning my sanity. So honestly, I need to know, those who have been in arranged marriages before, what in the world is that like? And also, how did it come up? I feel like this is not normal if this is exactly what it is. Should I just not even go and just skip town? I mean, I have driven by their house, and there is still a bunch of cars and a lot of activity, but every time I get close, my mom calls me and says to come back Thursday, with my sister being sent to basically act like a bodyguard. So with all things considered, I seriously am so lost and I don't know what to do. I first want to start off by clarifying that the original poster has basically said that this is a culturally based thing, and that if he doesn't show up to this and it is an engagement, then there would be major backlash for him and his parents and his family. He could apparently be shunned and outcast because of this, depending on how much effort and time were being put into it. But with all that in mind, I'm honestly really freaked out on behalf of the original poster. First of all, why on earth would you agree to some kind of arranged marriage, even if you're joking or not? That sounds like a nightmare to try and set yourself up for, and I just can't imagine why you would say that, especially if this is something that would happen in your culture. Now, for me, I think arranged marriages like this, especially when you don't know you're gonna get married, that in my opinion is incredibly toxic, and I just don't agree with it. And obviously, my perspective does not have arranged marriages, so there's probably like a lot I don't understand, but in my opinion, I don't think I need to know the nuances of this culture to literally stand here and be like, no, this is wrong. You shouldn't force somebody to get married to someone that they don't even know, because I think that's creepy and incredibly weird. Like seriously, this guy's about to get hitched up with a lady he doesn't even know. Like that is seriously so scary to me, and it's just so unacceptable. Now, I know if I was in this situation and I felt this kind of weird pressure from my family or something like that, I would be getting out of that town as fast as possible. There's no way anybody's gonna force me to get married, especially to someone I don't even know. That concept just doesn't make sense to me, and it's not something I would ever feel comfortable with. So truly, for the original poster, I'm so sorry you're stuck in this scenario, but all signs point to you having an arranged marriage. And if you really don't want to be a part of something like that, then I think it's time for you to plan out some kind of strategy of how you're going to deal with this when the time finally comes. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. Am I the jerk for refusing to pay for my son's wedding, even though I paid for his siblings? Here's what happened. Okay, so I want to say that there is a lot of this, and I'm not entirely sure I can accurately sum up everything. Long story short, my youngest, who's 24 years old, is excitedly planning his wedding. Our family is fairly well-to-do, and my children, even as adults, are somewhat spoiled. And you know what? Being their father, I like spoiling them. They are good people and they deserve it. However, Jason, that's not his real name, has always struggled both academically and especially socially. He is gay, and we live in a particularly conservative area, so he has had a rough go about it. I will also say not all the family agrees with Jason's lifestyle, both immediate and distant. That in and of itself has led to a lot of conflict. Naturally, I try to stay out of it, but that simply isn't possible. Anyways, along comes my son's first and only partner by the name of Alex, also not his real name. They officially met a little over a year ago, though it sickened me to learn that they first began communicating years ago through a prison pen pal program. While Alex is quiet and polite in person, he is large, heavily tattooed, and is undeniably intimidating. He also has a mile-long record, some of it containing physical offenses. A large portion of the family refuses to be around him. He really frightens them. Alex has recently proposed, and much to my displeasure, Jason said yes and is beyond delighted. Because his siblings have gotten beautiful weddings, which I footed the bill for, I'm not surprised that Jason came to me asking about a budget. The thing is, I can't in good conscience approve of this wedding. I swore that I would be there and that I wouldn't miss it. I will support Jason the best way I can, but I simply do not approve and I will not pay for something I am so terribly against. I wouldn't go as far as to say that Jason was distraught at this turn of events, but he was quite devastated. I think a lot of things were said on both of our sides that we regret, and me being a jerk was definitely said. I will say the rest of the family agrees with me. None of us want Alex around and none of us like him. The unfortunate side effect of all of this is Jason alienating himself from the rest of the family. He's gone stone cold no contact with his siblings. Our text messages have been few and far between and very impersonal. I've tried calling, but he simply won't answer the phone. I've tried going to his job site and he doesn't want to see me. I've even gone to his place where he currently resides with Alex, and the lights are on, yet they act like nobody is home. The family blames Alex for this behavior. I mean, this is what awful people do. So the selfish part of me wants to blame Alex as well. But I'm not entirely convinced though. I also still have Jason's voice ringing in my ears telling me that I'm a jerk. So honestly, am I the jerk in this situation? What should I do? Okay, so the original poster gives us some more information, and they say that they're not against their son marrying another man. That is apparently not a part of the equation at all, but instead they don't like the fact that Jason is marrying somebody who has an awful record. Like apparently this guy has a long record of stuff he's done, and this is the thing that's scaring the original poster. They are very afraid that Alex is going to treat their son horribly, and honestly I can kind of see where they're coming from. Like this guy has a violent criminal history, and that's the thing that scares the original poster the most. They also go on to say that they believe that people can change, but they also doubt that someone with this kind of history can change in the slightest. So I don't totally think you're the jerk in this situation. I just think there's a lot of sensitive feelings in this scenario, as it really hits close to home in many ways. Because from your son's perspective, they're probably thinking to themselves, look, I found somebody that I love, that they believe is reformed and changed. So the original poster son is probably devastated that you're not stepping up and trying to help out with the wedding in some kind of way. So I can completely understand why your son's like, no, I don't want to talk to you anymore. They probably feel betrayed and very upset that you're choosing to take the family side instead of trying to get to know their future husband. So this is really a mixed bag here. I don't think you're the jerk overall, but I think there is still stuff that you need to talk about with your son if he is willing to talk to you, because this is clearly a very sensitive situation, and it really would be a shame if this turned out to be the reason that your son never talks to you ever again. My girlfriend of 4 years has no spatial awareness and has tunnel vision in everything that she does, and it's gotten to the point where it's driving me absolutely nuts, and I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So honestly, the title says it all. She has no spatial awareness and it's driving me nuts. And this is resulting in a lot of broken items and bruises on me. Here's just a few examples that have happened this week so far. I walked into the bathroom while she was brushing her teeth, and she saw me and we nodded at each other. I walked behind her and she whipped around full speed to ask me a question, all while brushing her teeth, resulting in elbowing me right in the jaw and getting toothpaste all over my shirt. Another time, I was holding our cat and she wanted him, so she went to scoop him out of my arms and hit me in the chest twice, pulling pulling the cat out of my arms fast and hard. And of course, he dug his claws in because of the sudden movement, but she was already walking away, so I got cut badly when she pulled his claws out of me. Even now, just a few minutes ago, I was doing dishes and she walked in the room calmly, then quickly slammed down the dishes as I was sorting silverware and was gone in a flash. Well, she smashed one of the bowls over my hand and I was bleeding everywhere, but she was listening to music and simply didn't notice, just turning and walking away to do the next thing. I've brought this up before, but she just says to me, "Yeah, I know I flail. I try to remember not to, but I don't always have time to think about it. Stuff has to get done and I can't be sluggish and waste my time constantly. I can't relax like you do." Now, like I said, I don't believe it's malicious, but other than just hitting me, she constantly is breaking things. She slammed her coffee mug down on the coffee machine so hard that she broke her mug, as well as the bottom part of the coffee machine where you set the cup, and bent the top part, so I have to fight to close it now. Also, 2 Nintendo Switches have fallen victim to her slamming them on the table when she gets up. I bought a set of 24 glass cups a year ago, and we currently have 9 left, and I really want to know how I can solve this, as it seems like a non-starter. How can I make her understand how big of a deal this is? When I yell ow or say, "What are you doing?" she just starts crying, gets upset, and then walks away from me. When I bring it up gently, she just says something like, "Oh, I didn't know. You don't seem upset about it." Now, here's the thing. Every single other aspect of our relationship is awesome, but I'm sick of being sore and her spending all of her money to replace expensive items that are supposed to last for several years. How do I broach this topic and still be taken seriously? What should I do? Man, I can imagine how frustrating that would be to have all this expensive items and glassware just to then have it broken by your girlfriend all the time. Like, you're not kidding when you say she has no spatial awareness. She literally is not in control of where she's at, and it seems like she's just not paying attention at all. Like, seriously, it doesn't take that much effort to be like, okay, let me watch where I'm going. Let me try and be a little bit more careful and not break stuff around me. I'm curious now to know if this is something she only does with your stuff, or if she's breaking her stuff as well. Because I'm hoping that this isn't some kind of like malicious thing she's doing to try and get back at you, and that instead this is just something that's a part of her life that she's trying to figure out. Hopefully it's something that can be figured out, because honestly, this must be miserable to live with. I mean, I can understand this happening every now and then, but for this to be constantly happening all the time, that would seriously be very obnoxious, and I would not like that in the slightest. So hopefully your conversation with your girlfriend goes well, because her behavior absolutely needs to change. This next story came from the Am I the Jerk subreddit. Check the links in the description if you would like to submit your own story. My entitled Karen of a teacher made my childhood a horrible memory, and after years of dealing with this all the way into adulthood, I can confidently say that I wish her nothing but the worst, and I'm seriously so glad to be away from her. Here's what happened. So I want to share a very painful moment in my life that even today, I'm still affected by the issues from my encounter with a Karen teacher during my childhood. A long time ago in school, there was one particular teacher that I had the unfortunate displeasure to meet. She was such a cruel and horrible woman that she took great joy in seeing me suffer, to the point where she had encouraged my fellow classmates to bully me all because I was quiet in class. This teacher made me feel less as a human being, and it took me years to overcome the issues that I had suffered from my time in school. There is no revenge or Karens getting what they deserve. This moment of my life didn't have that typical type of ending where the Karen got fired or something like that. The only way I got away from the Karen was by moving on to the next grade. Back when I was 6 years of age in 1998, I was attending school for the very first time, and this is where I was starting the first grade. I remember it was very daunting for me, which made me as quiet as a field mouse. As per normal, I remember my parents took me to school, and this is when I was introduced to my very first school teacher. I remember her vividly, and her face. You don't forget a beast of a Karen when you see one. And as you would imagine, things started out normal, and Miss Karen kept a nice act up until my parents left. Her charming face turned to a stern look, and she would constantly sneer at any student that looked at her funny. Suddenly, her attention was fixated upon me because I was a rather quiet kid back then. This was merely because meeting new people would honestly scare me. In her mind, she must have concluded some self-delusional thought. She must have assumed that I was some kind of troublemaker, thinking that I was planning to cause her great harm, and that gave her the entitlement to harshly scold and humiliate me in front of the entire class. And this is all because I didn't speak up due to being nervous. For the start of the year, she would constantly belittle me and send me to the corner of the classroom classroom because I spoke in a soft voice when she would ask me a question in class. To make matters worse, as I mentioned before, she encouraged some of the other students to bully me, and she would actually scold me if I would fight back and try and stand up for myself towards these bullies. My parents were also aware about the situation because a few of the times, I remember running home after school crying to my parents about Miss Karen's antics. Now, the bullying only increased when my dad confronted my teacher about her mistreating me in class and for punishing me for literally no reason. I was able to be free from this teacher after I moved on to the second grade, but by that time, the damage had already been done. One Karen teacher managed to crush my gentle spirit back when I was a kid. She made me feel less than a human being. For years, I thought of myself as nothing, a useless piece of trash and someone that should never be seen or heard. This level of emotion followed me all through grade school to eventually high school. After graduating high school, I managed to escape those thoughts when I got into college. I honestly don't know what happened to Miss Karen, but all I can say now is that Hades is missing one demon, and I hope they get her back when she finally kicks the bucket. You would probably think that I'm being petty, all because I'm still holding a grudge against this teacher, even now as an adult. But because of her treatment and the awful things that she inflicted upon me back in my childhood, this has caused me to really have depressive episodes, as well as violent behavior as I grew up, especially when I was in high school. There were some dark times in my life where I thought that I was not going to make it out onto the other side. So that is why I hope Miss Karen rots in the lake of fire in Hades one day, and I truly hope that she burns. That is so awful to have a teacher like that. They literally just picked on you because you were quiet. It wasn't because you did anything or said anything wrong. It was literally because you were a quiet kid that didn't speak up, and you were just a first grader who was nervous to meet new people. Like, I don't know about you, but I'm gonna cut a 6-year-old a little bit of slack when it comes to being social in front of other people, especially people that they don't know. And you know what? I also really sympathize with the original poster because they didn't find any resolution towards this story. And I think that just goes to show you that some people just suck, and unfortunately, you kind of just have to deal with it. Sure, you wish you could have that moment where you get back at them, where you say that one thing you've always wanted to say to them, where you can fully get back at them and you can show them exactly why they were so awful. But in my own experience, especially as an adult where I've ran into people like this still, it honestly just doesn't work like that. Most of the time, you move on with your life and you're able to get your revenge by being a better person than those idiots. Because honestly, that's all you have sometimes. But truly, with all things considered, I'm so sorry to the original poster for the garbage they had to put up with. And hopefully, now that you're an adult, you're able to move forward without thinking about that stupid entitled Karen. Am I the jerk for skipping my stepdaughter's wedding after she treated me like garbage for several years? Here's what happened. Okay, for a bit of background, my stepdaughter has always been daddy's little princess. Her wedding is approaching and she's turned into bridezilla, expecting everyone to cater to her whims. She insisted on a lavish affair, and I'm expected to play the role of the loving stepmom. But here's the kicker. She never accepted me into the family and always treated me like an outsider. So after years of enduring her subtle jabs and snide comments, I have finally had enough. I told my husband that I won't be attending the wedding. Why should I pretend to be happy for her when she never showed me any respect? Now, my husband and his entire family are furious with me, claiming that I'm ruining her special day. Now, her disrespectful behavior hasn't always been overt, but manifested in subtle yet hurtful ways. She consistently excluded me from family discussions and events, making it very clear that I wasn't considered an important part of the family. Rare acknowledgments were often accompanied by dismissive comments or condescending tones. On various occasions, she compared me unfavorably to her biological mother, emphasizing that my husband was happier when he was with her. These accumulated instances of disrespect made it challenging to connect and contributed to my decision to not attend her wedding. My husband, who invited me to the wedding, hasn't been the best at managing the dynamic between his daughter and me. He often downplayed her disrespectful behavior, urging me to let it slide for the sake of family harmony. This lack of acknowledgement and support added to the strain on our relationship. The wedding became a breaking point, as he expected me to play the supportive stepmother despite the years of absolute disrespect. It's a complex situation, and I'm grappling with how poorly it's been handled on multiple fronts. So am I the jerk for standing up for myself and refusing to play the role of the supportive stepmom after years of being treated like an afterthought? Honestly, I can understand where you're coming from, and I can see entirely that your stepdaughter has treated you like garbage for several years. From the subtle subtle jabs to all the disrespectful behavior, it really is awful the way she's been treating you. But with all that in mind, in my opinion, I think it would be a mistake to not try and be there at the wedding. Don't get me wrong, your stepdaughter's awful, but in my opinion, especially based on your family's reaction, it really seems like this is only going to do you more harm than good. And in my opinion, I think this is just not going to benefit you in any kind of way. I think if you wanted to reframe this wedding, you could treat this as a send-off of your stepdaughter, knowing that you will never deal with her in this capacity ever again. This can be the line in the sand, where you basically say, this is the last time I'm doing anything for her, and she is never going to play a role in my life ever again. She has her own family, she has her own husband, so farewell, good riddance, and never come back. But it does kind of seem like you're doing this only because it's her wedding, and that this is kind of like the big day for her, and you want to take a small jab at her in some kind of way. At least that's my perspective. Like, I might be wrong here, but it does come off as a little bit petty, especially on such a big day as a wedding. So with all things considered, I really think if I was in your shoes, I would just grit my teeth and bear it and just try to get through the wedding. Then afterwards, you can cut loose and say, you know what, I'm never dealing with her ever again. But that's just my opinion. What do you think? Let us know down below. We would love to hear what you have to say. When you subscribe, make sure to hit the bell to turn on notifications. To finish listening to all the stories, check out the playlist at the top of the description. And if you want some chill music to put on in the background, check out easymode. If you like Am I the Jerk, subscribe to Am I the Genius. Everything will be linked down below in the description.